Mr. Speaker, this week we celebrate National Police Week. In doing so, we honor those officers who were killed in the line of duty. The measure before us, House Resolution 363, recognizes the countless law enforcement officers who serve their communities with valor, dignity, and integrity. It also explains the history behind Peace Officers Memorial Day and the National Police Week. It also lists the 556 law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty or whose stories were recovered during 2022. I wanted to take this opportunity to individually memorialize the Wisconsin police officers killed in the line of duty in 2023. Officer Pete Jerving, age 37 of Milwaukee Police Department, died in the line of duty on February 7th. Officer Emily Breidenbach, age 32, of the Cheddick Police Department, who died in the line of duty on April 9th. Officer Hunter Sheila, age 23, of the Cameron Police Department, who died in the line of duty on April 9th. And Deputy Katie Lensing, age 29, of the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office, who died in the line of duty just on May 7th. These four brave individuals and the 556 who went before them in 2022 represent the best of Wisconsin and this country, and we are grateful for their service and their heroic effort in a time of crisis. National Police Week is a solemn reminder of the actions our law enforcement officers take each day to keep our communities safe. I myself am the proud son of a law enforcement officer, as well as the proud father to a former law enforcement officer. I've seen their sacrifice firsthand, the long hours, the nights away from family, and the missed holidays. They do it over and over again without complaint because it's the job, and it's because it keeps our communities safe. In recent years, we've seen an increase in the number of ambush-style and targeted attacks on law enforcement officers. These senseless acts of violence are reprehensible, and they must stop. Today, I hope that the House speaks with one voice in support of law enforcement. To the families of the officers who had fallen, I want to thank the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guest, for introducing this important resolution, which I'm a proud co-sponsor of. I would urge my colleagues to swiftly pass this resolution to honor our fallen law enforcement officers and celebrate those still wearing the uniform, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Wisconsin reserves. The gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I ask to address the House for such time as I may consume.
Without objection. Recognized.
As I said earlier today, and I will say again, there are thousands of police officers and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families who are here for the National Fraternal Order of Police 42nd Annual National Peace Officers Memorial Service. And there are families that obviously are in pain today. This legislation is appropriately debated today to be able to express and support our support for recognizing National Police Week. In this little book are state after state of the persons who have fallen in duty. In visiting and participating in the ceremony just a few hours ago, we met families of those who had fallen in the line of duty. Those officers who died of COVID, who are on the front lines of protecting our community, and the wife of Sean Rios, who in Houston Police Department lost his life. Many, many others who we could not personally meet or engage with, but the Houston Police Department, Harris County Sheriff's Department, and as well, even members of other departments from Atlanta to Los Angeles. They were there. Proud to say that Houston's Honor Guard was there as well. So I rise in support of HRes 363, expressing support for recognizing National Police Week. Today, there are more than 800,000 sworn law enforcement officers serving in the United States each day. In every corner of this country, these brave men and women risk their lives to keep the peace and keep us safe. From responding to 9/11 calls, to investigating wrongdoing, to securing our public spaces, to being a friend to a lost 3-year-old, we call on our law enforcement officers to help us in times of need. During Police Week, we recognize the sacrifices that officers make in serving their communities, and we thank them for their service. I am glad that the expression of support is neither Democratic or Republican. It is as we stand here today as Americans. On this day, Peace Officers Memorial Day, and every day, we especially recognize the brave men and women who have perished in the line of duty. And each year, the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial must bear the names of more fallen heroes who have given their last full measure of devotion to the communities they swore to protect and serve. This year, that number is 556, and this includes men and women, and increasingly, women are joining the many law enforcement agencies local across America. There are even women police chiefs and heads of police organizations. We applaud that reach and that welcoming and that diversity of law enforcement officers. It makes the community better. HRes 363 honors those who have lost their lives in service for their communities. This resolution includes my amendment, which clarifies that of the 556 enforcement officers honored at Peace Officers Memorial Day this year, 224 were killed in line of duty in 2022, and 332 were killed in previous years, but their stories had been lost until now. While every officer named in this resolution deserves our respect and their families are owed both gratitude and sympathies, it is important to make clear that we have not allowed more than 500 officers to die on our watch for a second consecutive year. The country is still reeling from the loss of 586 officers who died in the line of duty almost entirely because of COVID-19 in 2021. They never stopped, they never went home, they were in the line of duty and they died. It is important to make that note so their story is not lost. Although America's law enforcement officers continue to battle the effects of the pandemic, there's been a significant reduction in such deaths due in part to reduced infection rates and the widespread availability and use of vaccinations. So last year, of the 224 officers killed in line of duty, 70 officers died after contracting the disease while carrying out their official duties. That is down from 405 officers in 2021, a decrease of 83%, for which we should be forever grateful and thankful, despite COVID-19 remaining the #1 cause of law enforcement death in 2022. It is important to acknowledge every line of duty death. I met a family, a mother, whose son, after 37 years on the force, had died of COVID. That is why I'm glad we have come to know of the sacrifices made by the remaining 332 officers, some who gave their lives as far back as 1857. Their courageous stories have finally been brought to light. And just as the resolution notes, law enforcement officers across the United States serve with valor, dignity, and integrity. And we must do the same, ensuring that we maintain the public trust in the integrity of this body by legislating the specificity and transparency. Let each officer be honored in their loss, in our loss of them. It is equally important to fully and accurately understand the challenges that law enforcement officers are facing, so that we make sure officers have the equipment, training, resources, and support they need to remain healthy and safe while they endeavor to keep us safe, as this resolution also recognizes. And the law enforcement trust and integrity legislation that I introduced that deals with equipment and training for law enforcement agencies as small as one to the major cities. If we truly care about the well-being of America's law enforcement officer, we must also work to end gun violence, particularly by keeping guns out of the hands of the wrong people where they endanger officers and communities they serve. I think it is important, Mr. Speaker, to take note that unfortunately today in New Mexico, 3 civilians are dead, 2 cops injured in New Mexico shooting. The suspect opened fire in Farmington, New Mexico. several injured, and 3 dead civilians. Officers shot and killed the gunman. 2 officers were wounded, and they've been taken to a local hospital. And they are hopefully listed in stable condition and hopefully will survive and recover. It's so very important that we realize that there's more that we can do in honoring these officers. Tragic, another shooting. We should also continue to hear from law enforcement about the other dangers they face and work to improve their ability to respond to new challenges while also identifying opportunities to simultaneously promote the safety of law enforcement officers and improve public safety. Though we do not have legislation before us today that addresses the needs of all law enforcement, I will continue to support bills that provide for the equipment, training, resources, how to interact through community police relationships to strengthen ties between law enforcement and communities they serve, provide them with the intervention of bringing down gun violence in our communities and all kinds of violence, and particularly give them the tools to help with mental health crises so that they are not the only ones that are called when a family has a mental health crisis. I commend Representative Guest and the bipartisan coalition of members, including Ranking Member Loughran, Chairman Issa, for introducing this legislation. I encourage my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support it, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady from Texas reserves. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, at this time, I would yield 5 minutes to the sponsor of the resolution, the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guest.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Scripture tells us, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God." Our peacemakers make up the thin blue line that protects our communities from crime, and they dedicate their lives to defending innocent citizens from those who seek to do harm. It is of the utmost importance that we honor the men and women of law enforcement and those who made the ultimate sacrifice in this noble pursuit. Former President Ronald Reagan once said, "There can be no more noble vocation than the protection of one's fellow citizens." No group is more fully committed to the well-being of their fellow Americans and to the faithful discharge of duty than our law enforcement personnel. Law enforcement lives by a creed: to serve and protect. In the performance of their duties, danger is a routine part of their jobs, and we on occasion lose valiant men and women. This legislation recognizes by name the 556 officers, 224 who were killed in the line of duty in 2022, and 332 others whose stories were lost until now. Within this list are 9 brave Mississippians who lost their lives in service to their communities, including Meridian Police Officer Kenneth Winston Croom, who was killed in the line of duty in June of last year while responding to a domestic violence call. Officer Croom and the 555 other officers are brave heroes who laid down their lives to protect those they served. Therefore, I urge my colleagues to support this important legislation that would acknowledge that police officers and law enforcement personnel, especially those that have made the ultimate sacrifice, should be remembered and honored. It expresses unwavering support for law enforcement officers, recognizes the law enforcement community for their continual unseen acts of sacrifice and heroism. It expresses condolences to the loved ones of each of the officers who made the ultimate sacrifice to their fellow man and gave their lives in the line of duty. May God bless our peacemakers, and we ask His protection on them as they protect us. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We would reserve, and I would inform the Speaker that we have no further speakers and would yield to the gentlelady from Texas.
The gentleman from Wisconsin reserves. The gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
I'm prepared to close. Thank you. Speaker, we will, and I will recognize to use such time as I may consume. We will see many of our local police officials and officers this week, and I want to acknowledge that the week of May 1st through May 5th, the City of Houston and the Houston Police Department had our own annual Police Week. And so I want to acknowledge publicly our great concern as a community in honoring police. And we had, of course, the Police Week Awards ceremony that we held on May 2nd. We had a day of prayer that was held on May 3rd in front of a police corporate headquarters, where our Houston area clergy came together to reinforce the partnership between community and the police. And then we had the annual Police Week Memorial Service that was held on May 5th, and was held at a very important memorial in our city where candlelight and the placing of the wreath occurred, as well as the roll call and taps. We're excited that the HPD Honor Guard will participate this week in the National Police Officer Week ceremony. I ask unanimous consent to place this into the record.
Without objection.
And then I want to acknowledge the words of our chief, Chief Troy Finner. We honor the heroes and heal their families' heart. Chief Troy Finner, HPD commanders and officers join thousands tonight to honor the memory of HPD Sergeant Sean Rios, one of 556 recent fallen officers at the Candlelight Vigil in Washington, D.C. And then to recognize from the Sheriff's Department, honoring from Major Susan Cotter, honoring those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for the Candlelight Vigil, and to honor those families, including Sergeant Gutierrez, Deputies Almendarez and Howard, gone but not forgotten. I honor those words, and I honor those leaders coming from my local community. Whether they are state, local, tribal, or federal agents or officers of any of those agencies, we are grateful for the service of all law enforcement. We thank them and their families, and many families, children, were there today at this memorial on the grounds of the United States Capitol. I also wish to thank the many law enforcement officers who serve in my district, working to keep Texans safe. I was proud to see the Houston Police Department, Harris County Sheriff's Office participate in this year's observances here in Washington, D.C. And to the Capitol Police, who protect the people, members of Congress, our staff, and the work we do, thank you for protecting our democracy. I'm proud to support and recognize law enforcement officers for the tremendous work they do each day, and to uplift in special reverence the names of all of those men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice for us and the nation included. May I offer these names to be held in high esteem and reverence who have passed away. Charles Udell Galloway, Harris County, Constable's Office, and he died on 1/23/22. Jennifer Lauren Chavis, Constable's Office, who died on April 2nd, 2022. Darren Almendarez, who died on March 31st, 2022. And Ramon Gutierrez, who died on 1/24/2022. Harris County Sheriffs, Robert Adam Howard, who passed away in the recent years. Ramon Gutierrez and Darren Almendarez, I mentioned, and of course, Sean Sebastian Rios from the Houston Police Department, died on November 9th, 2020. In their names and those who have passed over the years, I support passage of this resolution without question and hope my colleagues will do the same. On this moment, we are not different, we are the same, and we mourn for those who have fallen, pray for those officers in the hospital in New Mexico, and ask that we can bring the reason of protecting the American people, and we can do it together. With that, I yield back.
The gentlelady from Texas yields back. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to once again reiterate my strong support for this bipartisan resolution celebrating National Police Week and law enforcement officers. I urge its passage, and I yield the balance of my time.